An Arab executive cried when a 7-year-old African boy shivered while eating a rotten sandwich. Then he shocked everyone. He had dined in the world's most exclusive restaurants. He had tasted gold-flake steaks in Dubai, truffles flowing from France, and caviar that cost more than most families make in a year. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for what he saw in that forgotten corner of Africa. There, standing barefoot in the dust, was a boy no older than 7, holding a moldy sandwich with both hands, as if it were treasure. He didn't chew. He shivered, his eyes filled with fear, as if someone might take it away. And the Arab executive, one of the richest men alive, wept. What he did next would not only change that boy's life forever, but shake the world and expose a painful truth about privilege, loss, and redemption. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this one to you. Zayd al-Hakim never intended to stop in that village. His private jet was grounded due to a sandstorm sweeping across North Africa, forcing a security team to improvise a 3-hour road detour through a barren, scorched region. It was a place forgotten by progress, untouched by luxury and steeped in silence. Zayd was not used to discomfort. The 42-year-old billionaire Arab executive wore custom-tailored suits even during casual business trips. Today, however, he had rolled up his sleeves, reluctantly, because the heat inside the armored SUV was suffocating. Through the bulletproof windows, the land looked lifeless, until he saw the movement, a group of children, barefoot, dust-covered, running after a rusty wheel rim as if it were the most exciting thing in the world. "Stop the car," Zayd murmured. His driver, Hamid, hesitated. "Sir," I said stop. Back up 20 meters. As the car reversed and halted, Zayd stepped out, not out of curiosity, but because something in that image pulled at him. It was a strange sensation. He was a man who negotiated with royalty, moved oil deals worth billions, and controlled real estate in 5 countries. But now, a half-naked group of children chasing metal made his chest feel tight. Then he saw him. Among the children, one boy stood still, different from the others. He wasn't playing. He wasn't smiling. He was crouched beside a crooked brick wall, holding something wrapped in plastic. A sandwich. Except it wasn't a sandwich. It was a shadow of one. The bread was green with mold. The meat inside looked like it had turned long ago, and yet the boy, no older than 7, held it with trembling fingers, eyes darting as if someone might steal it from him. Zayd couldn't breathe. The boy didn't bite immediately. He sniffed it first, barely. Then he lifted it to his mouth, closed his eyes, and took the tiniest bite imaginable. His lips quivered. He swallowed with a visible wince. Then his body trembled, not from cold, but fear, as if eating something so foul could cost him his life. And that was when Zayd cried. He didn't notice the tears at first. Only when Hamid rushed forward to offer him a water bottle did he realize his vision was blurred. A billionaire, wearing a $20,000 watch, crying in the middle of nowhere over a child eating rotten bread. "Bring him," Zayd whispered. "Sir?" "The boy. Bring him to me. Now." The guards moved. The children scattered, startled by the sudden presence of armed men. The boy with the sandwich tried to run too, but he was weak. His legs gave out after only 3 steps, and he fell flat on the dust. The sandwich crushed beneath him. "Don't hurt him," Zayd barked, shoving one of the guards aside and kneeling next to the child himself. The boy looked up, terrified. Zayd extended his hand slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. "It's okay," he said softly in Arabic, though the dialect wasn't quite right. "You're safe." The boy blinked. His lower lip quivered again. He had no idea who this man was or why he cared. But something in Zayd's voice, the tremble, the urgency, made him freeze. Zayd picked him up gently. He was as light as a feather, bones where there should have been skin. The boy didn't resist. He just let himself be carried, the way someone who has given up does. Inside the SUV, Zayd wrapped him in a jacket and turned to Hamid. "Find out everything. What's this place? Who are these children? Is there an orphanage? A shelter? A parent?" Hamid nodded. already dialing on his satellite phone. The car started moving again, and the boy remained silent the whole time. He didn't ask where they were going. He didn't ask who Zaid was. He just stared down at his hands, now holding a bottle of clean water and a fresh sandwich from the onboard fridge. He didn't eat immediately. He didn't trust it. That was what broke Zaid all over again. This child had known so much disappointment that even a clean sandwich seemed like a trick. Zaid watched him out of the corner of his eye, speaking softly. "What's your name?" The boy looked up. His voice was barely audible. "Malik." It hit Zaid like a hammer. His son, lost to cancer 5 years earlier, had been named Malik too. He turned his face toward the window, hiding the tears again. The car stopped near a crumbling structure some locals called a school, though it had no roof, no desks, and barely any walls. Dozens of children huddled inside on the floor, while one exhausted woman stood at the front trying to teach numbers with sticks in the sand. It was a place built out of desperation, not dignity. Zaid stepped out, Malik still in his arms, and approached the woman. She looked up, startled. "I need to know everything," he said gently, "about him and about this place." The woman, her name was Amara, told him what she knew. Malik had shown up alone a few weeks earlier. No parents, no records. He didn't speak much, but he was always hungry, always watching the others eat. He never fought, never begged, just waited for leftovers. Some days, he didn't eat at all. "I tried to help," Amara said, "but we have so little." Zaid nodded. His voice was tight when he spoke again. "Not anymore." The next 24 hours became a whirlwind. Zaid postponed his trip. He moved into a local lodge and summoned his entire logistics team. Food, medicine, blankets, and water tanks began arriving in trucks. A temporary kitchen was built. Every child was examined by doctors flown in on his payroll. But none of it shook people more than what he did on the third day. He held a press conference, right there in the dust, with Malik sitting on his lap, wearing clean clothes and eating proper food for the first time. Zaid stood before the world's cameras and said, "I came here by accident, but God does not make mistakes. This boy reminded me of my son, and this village reminded me of everything I forgot in my pursuit of wealth. From this day on, my fortune will serve a different purpose." And then he named the village, Malik's Hope. But not everyone was ready to believe his transformation was genuine, and one man, in particular, was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. The village had changed overnight. Where there was dust, there was now paved stone. Where children once slept on bare ground, tents with beds and mosquito nets had risen. The smell of boiled rice and lamb filled the air. Laughter returned. Awkward at first, like a muscle being used again after years of atrophy. But one boy still ate in silence. Malik. He sat every day in the corner of the dining tent, away from the others, always watching before taking a single bite. Even when food overflowed, even when other children went back for seconds, he never asked for more. He never spoke unless addressed. And he never finished a meal. Zaid watched him closely. He had postponed his return to Dubai, pushing back meetings with oil magnates and ministers, canceling appearances at billion-dollar summits. None of it mattered now. He woke up every morning thinking of one thing. Why does this boy still flinch when someone touches his shoulder? Why does he never smile when he eats? One afternoon, after the final load of medicine had been distributed and the mobile clinic wrapped up its work, Zaid made a decision. "Bring Malik to the main house," he told Amara. The woman hesitated. "He's not like the other children. He doesn't trust easily." Zaid nodded. "I know. That's why I want to try." That evening, as the sun set in streaks of crimson and gold, Malik stood barefoot on the polished marble steps of the guest estate Zaid had renovated in just 3 days. The boy looked overwhelmed by the clean walls, the cool air, the silence. Zaid knelt down to meet his eyes. "I want you to stay here for a few days," he said softly. "There's food, a soft bed, toys. No one will touch you. No one will take anything from you. It's just us." Malik didn't answer. He didn't run, but he didn't nod either. Zaid reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden carving, an eagle hand-carved and polished. "My son loved this," he whispered. "He used to hold it when he couldn't sleep. He said it made him feel safe." He gently offered it to Malik. The boy took it, slowly. That night, Malik slept beside the window, still fully clothed, clutching the wooden eagle. Zaid stood in the hallway, watching through a crack in the door, his heart breaking at how tightly the child held that tiny piece of wood, as if his life depended on it. He didn't sleep. He just watched. All night, and by morning, Zaid knew what he had to do. News of the billionaire-turned-savior had spread fast. International headlines had shifted from stock markets to stories of sand and salvation. CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, everyone wanted an interview, but Zaid refused them all. He wasn't doing this for the cameras, but that didn't mean others weren't watching. Inside a darkened office in Casablanca, a man in a white linen suit watched the broadcast again, the one where Zaid held the boy on his lap and declared the village's rebirth. His lips curled into a sneer. "Of course it's him," the man muttered. Zaid al-Hakim, always a hero. His name was Monir, former business partner, former friend, and one of the few people who knew Zaid's darkest secret. He picked up the phone. "Start digging. I want everything on the boy. His background, his blood, and especially where Zaid is hiding him." Back at the village, Zaid took Malik on his first trip outside the compound. Just a short walk. Nothing fancy. But Malik hesitated. Zaid knelt beside him. "We're just going to the new well. I want you to see it." The boy didn't answer, but followed. The walk was quiet. They passed villagers planting seeds in fresh soil, women fetching water, and children playing football with a real ball now, not just crumpled rags. Zaid smiled. Malik did not. At the well, Zaid pointed to the sky. "See that? Birds never used to come here. But now they do, because there's life again." Malik looked up. A flock of swallows circled above. Then, without warning, he spoke. "Why did you cry?" Zaid froze. It was the first full sentence Malik had spoken since they met. He turned toward the boy. When I ate the sandwich." Zaid exhaled, kneeling to meet him eye to eye. "Because no child should tremble when they eat. Because it reminded me of my son. And because I realized I had become rich in everything except the things that mattered." Malik stared at him, and for the first time, the corners of his mouth moved. Just slightly. Not a smile, but not sadness either. Something in between. A flicker. Zaid reached out, placed his hand gently over Malik's. The boy didn't pull away this time. That night they ate together. For the first time. Side by side. No words were needed. But peace was never meant to last. 3 days later, Zaid's security team intercepted an unmarked drone hovering above the estate. Inside the drone, a camera, tracking. Zaid's face darkened when he heard. He knew what this meant. Monir had found them. He turned to his assistant. "Secure Malik. No more outdoor time. No media, no photos. I need my legal team. Now." The assistant hesitated. "Is there a threat?" Zaid looked at the boy through the window, now drawing shapes with his finger on the glass. "There always is," he said, "when someone wants to destroy something pure." The next day, Malik found a letter on his bed. Just 5 words. "You were never truly safe." He didn't understand the handwriting, but Zaid did. His hands trembled as he read it. It was Monir's. The same script from the note he left 10 years ago when he vanished, taking millions from their joint company and leaving behind a web of lies. But Zaid knew one thing now beyond all doubt. Monir wasn't after money this time. He was after Malik. And the reason why was something Zaid hadn't told anyone, not even himself. Zaid al-Hakim stared at the note again. "You were never truly safe." 5 simple words, but they had the weight of 1,000. It wasn't just a threat. It was a message from the past, a past he had buried under steel towers, business empires, an illusion of peace. And now, after all these years, Monir had returned, not to demand money, but to unearth something deeper. Zaid walked into the security room. Dozens of screens flickered with live footage of the compound. Kids playing, staff unloading food crates, guards patrolling. He zoomed in on Malik's room. The boy was sitting on the bed, still holding the wooden eagle in his hand, staring at the corner of the room, not moving, not blinking. Has anyone approached him? Zaid asked. No, sir, replied Khaled, his head of security. Only Amara and your assistant this morning. Zaid's jaw tightened. Then how did the letter get there? Khaled looked nervous. We're investigating. There's no sign of forced entry. That made it worse. Someone had access. Zaid left the room without another word. He found Malik in his bedroom, still in silence. The boy looked up as Zaid entered. He didn't smile, but he didn't flinch either. Zaid sat beside him. Did you see who left the note? Malik shook his head. Zaid's voice dropped to a whisper. Do you know what it means? The boy paused and nodded. Zaid felt his chest tighten. Who told you weren't safe, Malik? Was it before you came here? The boy looked down. Then he whispered, a man in white. Zaid went still. It was exactly how Munir used to dress. White linen suits. Always, even in the desert. Zaid reached into his coat and took out a small digital photo. It was grainy, a still from drone footage. A man in white standing near a truck, far from the compound but too close for comfort. Was it him? Zaid asked. Malik's hand trembled as he pointed at the photo. He told me I belonged to him. Zaid's stomach dropped. Everything inside him screamed to stay calm. For the boy, but the fury rising in his chest was unstoppable. Not anymore, he said softly. You belong to no one. That night, Zaid didn't sleep. He locked himself in his office and opened a hidden safe. Inside were two objects, a gun and an envelope sealed with wax. He ignored the weapon. Instead, he opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper, an old birth certificate, faded and torn. He looked at the name. Malik ibn Zaid al-Hakim. His hand trembled. He had buried this part of his life, hidden it so deep that even he no longer believed it was real. 7 years ago, before the cancer took his son, before Munir betrayed him, there had been another Malik. He was born during a business trip to Ethiopia. The mother, a woman Zaid had loved in secret, died during childbirth. Zaid had panicked. Munir had advised him to make it go away quietly. You can't have the scandal, Munir had said. A child with a woman outside marriage? In Africa? The boar will destroy you. Let me handle it. And Zaid had let him. He'd told himself it was for the company, for his reputation, for the empire he was building. He signed the papers. He let Munir take the boy to be placed in a private care facility. But that facility never existed. And that boy was now asleep in the next room, trembling when he ate. Because of him, Zaid pressed his hands to his face. He didn't just fail Malik. He abandoned him. The next morning, Zaid made a decision that would change everything. He called a press conference. His team objected. Sir, it's not safe. If Munir's people are watching, it could escalate. I don't care, Zaid said coldly. Let them hear every word. Under a white canopy at the center of the compound, Zaid stood before the cameras, wearing no suit, just a simple cotton shirt and sandals. Malik sat beside him, holding the eagle. Zaid spoke into the microphone with a calm that trembled beneath the surface. 7 years ago, I made the greatest mistake of my life. I abandoned my own child out of fear. I let power, image, and pride blind me to what mattered. And I trusted a man, Munir, who used that weakness to destroy both of us. He looked at Malik. This boy is my son. The crowd gasped. The journalists froze. Zaid continued. His name is Malik. He carries my blood, my shame. But from this moment forward, he will also carry my name, my protection, and everything I own. He turned to the cameras. And if anyone dares come for him again, I will bury them. Across the world, the headlines exploded. Arab billionaire admits to secret love child in Africa. Zaid al-Hakim confesses past mistake on live broadcast. Who is Munir? The man behind the disappearance of the CEO's hidden son. Zaid didn't care about the fallout, but Munir did. In a penthouse in Tangier, He crushed his wine glass as the news aired. Blood trickled down his hand, but he didn't notice. He thinks he's untouchable, Monir snarled. Let's see how long that lasts. He picked up the phone again. I want the boy gone, before the week ends. Back at the compound, Zayd knew time was running out. That night, he sat by Malik's bed and told him everything. The boy didn't speak, but when Zayd started to cry, Malik reached out and touched his father's hand for the first time. Zayd whispered, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I will fight for it every day. Malik whispered something back, so softly that Zayd almost missed it. You're not like the man in white. Then he turned over and went to sleep, the eagle in his hands. Zayd stayed beside him until sunrise, but outside the compound, far beyond the walls, someone was already watching, with a scope, and his finger was on the trigger. At precisely 4:32 a.m., just before the first call, the prayer echoed across the dry plains. A shot rang out. It wasn't loud. It was distant, precise, silenced, and it missed by less than half an inch. The bullet shattered the window of Zayd's study, piercing to the thick bulletproof coating, but losing just enough momentum to lodge into the mahogany bookshelf behind him. Zayd had been standing seconds earlier. He now lay flat on the marble floor, Malik in his arms, both shaken, alive, but breathless. The boy hadn't even screamed. He'd simply looked up, eyes wide with the same expression of fear he wore the day Zayd found him eating the rotten sandwich. That same tremor in his eyes, as if life had reminded him again. Nothing stays safe for long. Zayd pressed Malik's head into his chest. I've got you, he whispered. I've got you. The door burst open. Khalid stormed in, weapon drawn. Sir, are you hurt? Zayd pointed toward the broken window. The shooter was aiming at him. Malik didn't move. He just stayed still, not crying, not blinking. His body had learned long ago. Stillness is the safest reaction. We need to move now, Khalid said. Secure the compound. We'll get him out through the tunnel system. Zayd shook his head. No more hiding. He deserves to live, not run. Khalid clenched his jaw. Sir, with all due respect. Zayd interrupted, his voice sharp. Track them. I want the shooter alive. I want to know who paid him. The security team was already in motion. Drones were deployed. Perimeters locked. Heat signatures scanned. But the sniper was gone. Clean. Professional. Almost like he had never existed. Except he had. And now Malik's innocence had another scar. 2 hours later, while the sun rose over savannah, Zayd sat in the garden with Malik. He had dismissed his staff. Just the two of them now. Father and son, surrounded by quiet. The boy held the eagle again. Zayd watched him carefully. You're not afraid of death, are you? Malik shrugged. Zayd reached for his hand. But you should never have to think about it. Not at 7. Not ever. Malik looked up. His voice came softly. Why do they want me gone? Zayd exhaled. Because bad people hate when truth lives. And you are the proof of my worst truth. The boy didn't fully understand, but he knew pain when he heard it. His hand gripped Zayd's tighter. I want to be with you, Malik whispered. Zayd smiled through the ache in his chest. You will be, forever. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie, unless he acted now. That evening, Zayd convened a private war room. His legal team, investigators, and intelligence contractors gathered in the estate's underground command center. He pointed to the screen. A map of recent activity across northern Morocco and western Algeria. Find Monir, he said. Every satellite, every informant, every dollar needed, use it. Then he paused. And once you find him, I'm going to him. Everyone in the room looked at him as if he were insane. Sir, said Fatima, his chief counsel, with respect, you can't walk into this. He already tried to kill you. The next time, Zayd cut her off. The next time, he'll aim for Malik's heart. I need to end this myself. Fatima slammed her file shut. You're not just a father, Zayd. You're a figure to millions. You walking into a trap could collapse everything you built. He looked her in the eye, then let it fall. The silence in the room said everything. They had never seen him like this. Not even when his first son died. Not even when Monir disappeared with $90 million. But now, because of one trembling child, they saw the unshakable Arab billionaire willing to lose it all. Not for power, but for redemption. That night, Zaid tucked Malik into bed. The boy was quiet, curled on his side, eyes wide open. "Will they try again?" he asked. Zaid sat beside him. "They might, but you'll never be alone." He kissed Malik's forehead gently. "Tomorrow," Zaid said, "I have to go see someone. A very bad man. But I'll come back. I promise." Malik sat up. "No," he said. Zaid smiled. "I have to. You said we don't run." "I'm not running. I'm facing him." Malik looked down at the eagle. Then, after a long pause, he handed it to Zaid. "For you." Zaid's heart clenched. "Are you sure?" Malik nodded. "It kept me safe. Now it's your turn." Zaid couldn't speak. He just pulled the boy into his chest. And for the first time, Malik held him back. Tightly. By morning, Zaid was gone. He took only 2 guards and wore no suit, just a plain robe and sandals, the same way his father had dressed in the early days, when honor meant more than image. They crossed the border under satellite blind zones, avoiding all digital tracking. Monir's location had been pinpointed to a private villa near Tlemcen, hidden in the hills, guarded like a fortress. Zaid knew the place well. It used to be his. Until Monir stole it too. They arrived at dusk. The guard stayed behind. Zaid entered alone. The villa smelled of cigars and bitterness. Monir waited in the inner courtyard, dressed in his signature white. He hadn't aged well. His face was drawn, sunken, poisoned by years of resentment. "Zaid," he said with false warmth, "I was wondering when you'd show." Zaid didn't sit. "You tried to kill a child." Monir laughed. "I warned you, old friend. I told you to let it go." "That's my son." "No, he's your shame." Zaid stepped forward. "He's my redemption." Monir's smile vanished. "You ruined everything," he hissed. "I built you. I protected your secrets. And when I asked for control, you exiled me. You betrayed me," Zaid said coldly. "You used a child as leverage. I gave you a chance to erase him. You said yes." Zaid's fists clenched. "I said yes because I was afraid. You used that. You lied. You vanished. And you left him in the dirt." Monir picked up a glass of wine. "He survived. That's not my fault." Zaid stepped closer. "If you ever come near him again, I will not speak next time." The 2 men locked eyes, one with a smirk, one with fire. Then Zaid tossed something on the table. A folder. Monir opened it. Inside were documents, bank accounts, shell corporations, properties, all linked to Monir, all under Zaid's control now. "I know what you built in my shadow," Zaid said, "and now it's mine. You come for my son again, and I'll bury you in legal fire." Monir looked pale. "You wouldn't." Zaid turned to leave. "Try me." As the sun dipped behind the hills, Zaid stepped into the open again. The eagle still rested in his pocket, and behind him, Monir stood alone in silence, finally realizing he had lost, not to power, but to love. Zaid's return was not met with celebration. There were no cameras, no press statements, no triumph, just silence. He arrived at the compound after midnight, dusty from the road, the eagle still clenched in his hand. Malik was asleep, curled under his blanket, breathing softly. For a long time, Zaid didn't enter the room. He just watched through the door, grateful that, for now, his son was untouched by the storm that was coming. Because Zaid knew something Monir didn't. This wasn't over. The next morning it began, not with bullets, but with words. News outlets across Europe and the Middle East exploded with headlines. Illegitimate child sparks shareholder uprising against Al-Hakim Empire. Whistleblower reveals billionaire covered up African scandal for 7 years. Malik not Zaid's son. DNA test filed by former business partner. It wasn't just a character attack. It was war. Zaid stood in front of a room of lawyers and board members. Half of them refused to meet his eyes. The other half stared at him like a sinking ship, glorious, but doomed. You handed him the motive, Fatima whispered at his side. He can't beat you as a man, so he's coming after your legacy. Zayd didn't flinch. Let him. One of the board members, Kareem, old and shrewd, finally spoke. Zayd, is the boy really yours? Zayd looked him in the eye. He is my son, whether by blood or by choice. That's not what the investors want to hear. I don't care what investors want to hear. Then you may lose everything. Zayd nodded. I've lost worse. Back at the compound, Malik noticed a change. Guards were everywhere. The laughter of children had quieted. Amara stopped teaching for the day. She'd spent the morning in tears. Word had spread that donations were freezing. The foreign clinics were threatening to pull out, and Malik, sharp for his age, understood something without being told. He was the reason it was happening. He sat alone in the garden that afternoon, holding the eagle, pressing it so tightly his fingers turned white. Zayd found him there. He sat beside him. Quiet at first. I ruined it, Malik whispered. Zayd turned. What? Malik's eyes were wet. They're leaving. Everyone. Because of me. Zayd's heart broke. He shook his head, kneeling in front of the boy. No, never say that. They're mad at you. Because of me. Zayd took Malik's hand. They're not mad because of you. They're mad because I told the truth. And truth scares people. Malik blinked. Zayd continued. Everything I built, those buildings, those companies, those titles, they mean nothing if I can't stand beside my own son when the world throws stones. Malik wiped his eyes. But you might lose your job. Zayd smiled. Then I'll find a better one. Maybe I'll become a gardener. Or a teacher like Amara. Malik tilted his head. You don't know how to teach. Zayd laughed. That's true, but I know how to protect. That night, Zayd made a decision. He went online, not through PR handlers, not through corporate channels, but with his phone, alone, under the stars, seated beside Malik. He hit record, and he spoke. To the people who have followed me for years, who've watched my career, admired my empire, I owe you truth. 7 years ago, I made a mistake. I let fear guide me. I allowed someone I trusted to take my child away, and I did nothing, until now. He turned the phone toward Malik, who sat beside him, quiet but calm. This is my son. His name is Malik, not because of biology, but because I chose him. I claimed him, and I would burn every tower I built if it meant he never trembled when he eats again. He paused. I'm not perfect. I've made enemies. I've made mistakes, but I will not be shamed for loving my child. He hit post. The video was viewed 12 million times in 24 hours. It was raw, imperfect, unfiltered, and people believed it. The tide began to shift. Influencers reposted it. Mothers wept. Activists praised him. Even celebrities in Dubai, New York, and Nairobi offered support. But the real blow came when the DNA results were leaked. And they were positive. Malik was Zayd's biological son. Every legal attack collapsed like a house of sand. Monir's attempt at erasure had turned into global vindication, and the people who tried to bury Malik had just crowned him. Back in Tangier, Monir watched it all unfold. He smashed his television, glass flying across the room. His assistants scattered. Give me something, he screamed. Anything. I want one last card. But there was nothing left. Zayd had done the unthinkable. He had told the truth and survived. Back at the estate, a party had begun. The children returned to the garden. Amara resumed teaching, but this time with chalkboards flown in from Cairo. Even Malik smiled now, really smiled. Not a flicker, not a whisper, but a wide, bright grin as he ran toward Zayd, clutching a drawing in his hand. It's us, he said. You and me. Zayd looked at the paper. The drawing was simple. 2 stick figures, holding hands, with a giant eagle flying above. Zayd lifted Malik in his arms. You kept me safe, too, he whispered. Then he looked at the camera crew. preparing for a new interview, and raised his hand. "No press today," he said. "Today I'm just a father." But as they laughed, danced, and celebrated, a call came through on Khaled's encrypted phone. The voice on the line was grave. "Sir, you need to see this." A file was sent. Video footage of a man in a lab coat handing Monir a vial, labeled Malik, blood sample. Zaid froze. "What is this?" Khaled's face went pale. It was taken 2 weeks ago. Before the drone. Before the bullet. Then he knew. Zaid felt the ground shift beneath him. "What's in the vial?" Khaled hesitated. "We're still trying to confirm. But, sir, it's not just about identity." Zaid's voice dropped. "Then what?" Khaled swallowed. "It may be about control." The sky above the compound was clear that morning, too peaceful for what Zaid had just discovered. In his hand, he held the image of the vial labeled Malik blood sample. The footage had been taken in secret. A lab technician, Monir, standing over him. The transfer was cold, clinical, intentional. It wasn't about discrediting Zaid. It wasn't about destroying the empire. Monir had been planning something much darker. Zaid stormed into the security center. Khaled and Fatima were already there, their faces drawn and pale. "What's in the vial?" Zaid asked again, his voice quiet but dangerous. Fatima looked up from her tablet. They were running a genetic profile, but not just for paternity. They were comparing Malik's DNA to others in a confidential database. Zaid frowned. "Why?" Khaled exhaled. "We think Monir was working with someone else, maybe a biotech company based in Germany, the kind that deals with exclusive treatments. High-end gene mapping. We found correspondence. He was trying to sell access to something." Zaid's chest tightened. "Something in my son?" Khaled nodded slowly. "Malik has a rare genetic marker, a protein that's been linked to resistance to certain neurological diseases. The data is still early, but if it's real, his blood could be worth billions." Zaid closed his eyes. It was never about him. It had always been about Malik. Even the attempt on his life wasn't just a warning. It was a threat wrapped in economics. "Where's the vial now?" Zaid asked. "We traced the courier to Madrid," Fatima said, "but it vanished after that. We're working with contacts in Interpol." Zaid didn't wait for more. He stood up. "Get the jet ready. We're leaving for Spain. Tonight." "Sir," Khaled warned, "this could be bait." Zaid didn't care. If they've stolen a part of him, they've already crossed the line. Later that evening, he kissed Malik on the head. The boy was watching cartoons in Arabic, laughter now easy for him. Zaid sat beside him for a moment longer than usual. "Papa?" Malik asked, looking up. Zaid smiled. "Yes." "Are you still fighting for me?" Zaid nodded, gripping the wooden eagle in his hand. "Always." He didn't say goodbye. He never would. By dawn, they were in Madrid. The tip-off led them to a private clinic, discreet and alarmingly quiet. It looked more like a luxury hotel than a research lab. Inside, Zaid walked alone past glass doors and perfumed halls. At the front desk, he showed no credentials, only the photo of the vial. "I know it was here," he said. The receptionist froze, then whispered, "Follow me." They were brought to the director, a thin, nervous man named Dr. Rosenthal. His accent was clipped, his eyes twitchy. "I didn't know the sample was stolen," he insisted. "It arrived anonymously, but the markers, we couldn't ignore it." "Where is it now?" Zaid demanded. Rosenthal gestured to a biometric vault. "Secured. Untouched. We didn't proceed after we traced the signature back to your son. You were going to sell it." "No," Rosenthal stammered. "We were approached with interest, but nothing left the lab. You have my word." Zaid stared at the vault, then back at Rosenthal. "I don't want your word," he said. "I want the chain of custody, the encryption logs, the contacts. I want everything." The doctor nodded, pale. Over the next 6 hours, Zaid and his team recovered not only the vial, but evidence of every buyer Monir had been in contact with: CEOs, pharmaceutical brokers, even private collectors obsessed with biological uniqueness. It was trafficking, dressed as science. Zayd had never felt dirtier and more resolute. He ordered the vial destroyed, on camera, with legal witnesses. Then he walked out into the sunlight and called home. "Tell Malik," he said, "it's over." But it wasn't. Not quite, because Munir had disappeared again. Vanished. No trace. No signal. No shadow. And that was worse than confrontation. It was uncertainty. For the next 3 months, Zayd returned to building. Not his company, but his son's world. The compound became a school, a sanctuary, a symbol. Malik's hope attracted educators, artists, doctors, thinkers. Children came from across the continent, not to survive, but to live. Zayd was there for all of it. He woke Malik every morning, helped him dress, ate with him under the trees, taught him how to read both Arabic and French. He even built a library named after Amara, who had passed away peacefully weeks earlier. But some nights, the fear returned. Malik would wake in cold sweats. "The man in white," he'd whisper, and Zayd would hold him until the shaking stopped, until one morning it didn't come. And Malik smiled over breakfast, eyes shining with something new. Peace. Then, one day, Zayd received a letter. No return address. Handwritten. Inside a single sentence. "You saved him. I saved you." It was signed only with the letter S. Khalid suspected it came from someone deep inside the biotech web. Someone who turned on Munir at the last moment. Someone who perhaps understood what Zayd had risked. But Zayd didn't care. He burned the letter, because none of it mattered anymore. All that mattered was the boy playing soccer outside, his laughter echoing across the garden. A boy who had once trembled while eating rotten bread. A boy who now ran with bare feet across golden fields, shouting with joy, trusting that he was safe. A boy who had given Zayd something no empire ever had, a reason to live again. And as the sun began to set, Zayd walked out into the grass, opened his arms, and Malik ran into them without hesitation. No cameras, no audience, just father and son, and the sound of healing. If this story moved you, remember, some people build empires out of steel and gold, but the strongest empires are made of love, redemption, and the courage to face your past. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who believes in second chances.